A little something on the screen there. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm a little late getting a move on to getting a little late. I'm a little late in getting the move on to making this video. Just been taking it easy today. I went to the doctor yesterday. Didn't see the doctor again. It was just the nurse. She just changed the dressing on my toe. Said it's looking good as far as it's doing what they want it to be doing. The antibiotics are, I guess, keeping the infection at bay, and it's like not getting red or irritated and all that. Monday, I'm supposed to go back Monday, and I will actually see the doctor then. And then I guess we will do, if I can get the ride arranged and get there and be there, then hopefully Monday would be when I find out for sure what are we doing. Are we keep it? Is the toe doing well enough to keep it? Or does some of it have to come off or all of it or whatever? And I'm feeling kind of like that it may be leaning in a direction that things are clearing up, and we may ultimately, that's just me. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know until I see the doctor and he assesses what he thinks needs to be done. Now, going on what they told me in the ER, that night, was that this doctor himself, the general surgeon, told the ER doctor to let me know that the chances are, the chances are leaning in the direction that I will probably have to have it cut off. So I've just been going with that mindset that this is what I was told. This is probably what's going to happen. Now, it could be different, but until then, I'm just trying to do things like I normally do them. I've got this boot from last year where I was dealing with another toe that helps me. When I need to walk Lady Bird, I'm able to get her across the street and let her do her thing, and it takes the pressure off my foot, so it makes it easier to do things also around in the trailer. I've done swept and mopped a little bit here today. But I'm going to read from Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. And I know I just kind of rambled on. I think that's kind of how I've been doing it. Sometimes I like to jump right into the reading. And then sometimes I'm just sharing with you what's going on. And I guess today I felt like, I might as well explain what happened yesterday with the doctor's appointment. Because if you do watch me, you know that I mentioned it, that I had that and everything. So this is number 47. I read it right to myself right before deciding to do the video. And I'm really digging this one. Number 47, argue for your limitations and they are yours. Let me repeat that. Argue for your limitations and they are yours. Many people spend a great deal of energy arguing for their own limitations. I can't do that. I can't help it. I've always been that way. I'll never have a loving relationship. And thousands of other negative and self-defeating statements. Our minds are powerful instruments. When we decide that something is true or beyond our reach, it's very difficult to pierce through this self-created hurdle. When we argue for our position, it's nearly impossible. Suppose, for example, you tell yourself, I can't write. You'll look for examples to prove your position. You'll remember your poor essays in high school or recall how awkward you felt the last time you sat down to write a letter. You'll fill your head with limitations that will frighten you from trying. In order to become a writer or anything else, the first step is to silence your greatest critic, you. Yeah, I mean, that's got to be one of the biggest lessons I've learned in life. And I kind of already knew it, but I'll tell you about somebody I met a few years back after I get done with this, if I can remember. I had a client who told me, I'll never have a good relationship. I always screw them up. Sure enough, she was right. Whenever she met someone, she would, without even knowing it, look for reasons for her new partner to leave her. If she were late for a date, she would tell him, I'm always late. If they had a disagreement, she would say, I'm always getting into arguments. Sooner or later, she would convince him that she wasn't worthy of his love. Then she would say to herself, See, it happens every time. I'll never have a good relationship. She had to learn to stop expecting things to go wrong. She needed to catch herself in the act of arguing for her own limitations. When she started to say, I always do that, she needed instead to say, that's ridiculous. I don't always do anything. She had to say that arguing for her limitations was just a negative habit that could easily be replaced with a more positive habit. Today, she's doing much better. When she reverts to her old habit, she usually laughs at herself. I have learned that when I argue for my own limitations, very seldom do I disappoint myself. I suspect the same is true for you. I see that. What I was going to say was I met someone years back that's an author. Of course, when I was meeting him, all I knew was what I'd seen on the little flyer, and that he had wrote several books at the time. He was a renowned comic book artist, like he had worked for Marvel and DC, and then he also was a writer. But anyway, so I got to meet him at a library and stuff, and it was really interesting in him telling his story, because it was a story of him having a pretty horrible accident in a car, and then going from being, he was like, I want to say he was right-handed or left-handed one. Whatever his dominant hand was, he was being told after this accident that he may never be able to draw comic books again, blah, blah, blah. And long story short is he didn't let that stop him. He completely learned how to draw with his opposite hand. He retrained his whole brain so that he could use the hand that wasn't his dominant hand. And he went on to continue to do art and write these books and all that. And one of his main driving parts of the message itself about his life in general was the biggest obstacle he ever, the biggest obstacle he ever had was himself, like getting over certain hurdles in his head. And once he was able to realize that, he was able to take those next steps to do whatever it is that needed to be done to get where he wanted to go. And like he was saying, very often people will be their own roadblock. So, like for instance, I'm that way to myself quite often. Like I see where on some days I couldn't easily make a reason up for why I can't do that, or why I'm not doing that, or why instead of saying, well, what can I do? And, but I'm working on it, like every day I have to, sometimes like today I've had to be a little harder on myself. I got a little slow kickstart, but I have done a few things around the house, and I still got things I can do. I started kind of clearing my table off again. It's back to where, a month ago I kind of cleared it off and had some space and did some photos of some toys and stuff, to where I had a big pile of action figures laying there again, and I'm slowly putting them back in some boxes so that I can restart over. Like I'll have a space to work with in the next day or so, and I can like pick some figures out, come up with a little idea for pictures and storyline. Might even make a video, I don't know yet. But until next time, I'm going to just call it short here. Till next time, like I said, you know who I am. Or if you don't, I'm Mr. Cloud, Greycloud, Sage of the Eternal Moment, over and out. Ditto.